Hey, what's up you guys? It's Six. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is actually a skin rendering tutorial. I've gotten a handful of people asking me on various different platforms how I go about rendering skin, and while I do have a tutorial further back on this channel, enough things have changed since that video that I figured now would be a good time to do an updated one. A lot of things have stayed the same, but like I said, there are enough changes that I think are significant enough that I feel like I can go about doing a new one. So today I'm going to be demoing that on this month's October Patreon print. Here's the finished version somewhere on screen. If you like how she looks, you can subscribe to the Patreon on either the matcha or chamomile tiers by Halloween to get this chick in the mail. If you don't, you're not gonna get her, probably, because I have to figure out how to set up a secret shop, and that's complicated, and who knows when that'll be. So if you really want her, subscribe to the Patreon by October 31st. Happy Halloween. Let's get into the video. So I already know right away that she's gonna have a pretty unnatural skin tone. I think I'm settling somewhere between candy yellow or possibly orange. We'll see how things go down the line. But I like to do sort of unnatural skin tones when I do skin rendering tutorials. I will have a few examples of some natural tones at the end, but I like to do them in unnatural tones so that people can kind of like just grasp the overall concept of how I choose my colors and where I place my shadows, rather than worrying about picking a tone. So it's more like kind of the actual process rather than like fussing about choosing your colors, because choosing your colors is easy once you understand how to go about doing all of this stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to choose my color. So I think I'm going to go somewhere along like a buttercuppy yellow of some sort. And you can see I have a purpley kind of pinkish tone for the line art. And I want to say that doesn't matter, but it actually really does, because I don't do regular line art. As you can see, the line art that I have is very textured. There's a lot of like white space left behind and things like that. And because of that, using certain colors, especially darker colors, will mean that, here, let me do a little example. So things get blown out or they disappear, right? And you do not want that in your line art. That's why a lot of people do solid or black line art, but I really like it to have texture. I really like it to be fuzzy. I also really like it to be colorful. So the way that I get around that is I will throw my base color down in just a second. I'm just gonna be messy with it. So I throw my base color down. Oh, actually, I missed some spots off camera, but we're not gonna worry about that because you guys can't see it. Well, I guess you guys can see it a little bit. Okay. So I throw my base color down, and then I will turn my sketch layer or my lines layer, whatever you like to do. Some people do sketch and then straight to color. Some people do sketch lines and color. Doesn't matter either way, whether your sketch layer or your line art layer. If it's on top, set it to multiply, and then whatever color you put underneath, it will suit that color. So you can see it's no longer that nasty blown out like pinkish purple against this navy. It's now like a really deep, rich, like dark purple. So I can put any color down without worrying about what that color is going to look like with my line art. Another pro tip is to try to think about what your overall tones are going to be in your illustration. Is your illustration going to be really warm toned? Is it going to be really cool toned? And try to choose a line art color that's going to suit that if you're doing colored line art. If you're doing black line art, doesn't matter. But if you're gonna choose a color, like for instance, I know that this piece is based on candy corn, so it's gonna be a lot of warm tones. I'm gonna have yellows, oranges, maybe a little bit of red, but mostly warm tones, and then some cooler shadows, but it's mostly gonna be warm tones. So I have a purple that's a little bit more on the redder side, and I might even change this further down the line if I want it to be more of like a reddish orangey color. I can do that really easily. All I have to do is go to my lines and mess with my hue slider and go a little bit redder, but I like where it's at right now, so I'm just gonna leave it as is. But again, just try to pick a line art layer that's gonna suit your needs. The next thing I'm going to do is pick my shadows. So I explained this in my hair coloring tutorial, or my hair rendering tutorial, whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to explain it again here, just to keep things relatively easy. Oops, I'll put that on my line art layer. just keep things really easy so you guys don't have to sort through 1.5 million videos to find what I do. So let me make sure you guys can actually see the color wheel. So I put down my base color, and then I alpha lock my layer. Alpha locking your layer is so important because if you're working in Procreate, especially if you don't put your layer in alpha lock, when you start blending, it's gonna mix this white in with whatever colors you're blending. And when it comes to the actual like rendering process, when we start blurring out our shadows and our highlights and everything like that, we don't want the background color getting mixed into our rendering. We just want the colors that we put down. So alpha lock your layer, and then I'm going to pick either 2 shadows or I'm going to pick a shadow and a highlight. I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to focus on 2 shadows because that is more often what I do. I start from light and go to dark. I think it's like really common in digital art for people to start with their midtone and go to their highlight, which sometimes I will do that. I'll kind of add a highlight in at the end, but you guys will see that when I do that. But when I'm starting out, I just focus on a midtone and a shadow. So I have my base, and then what I do is and try to think of again the colors that you want everything to be, warm tones, cool tones, things like that. But I know if I have like a yellow, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push it over just slightly to the, oh my god, the left. And then I'm gonna take my pen. Oh, actually, do I have, that's another important thing. Make sure your color is selected, because if it's not and you start moving stuff, you're not going to get the right color. So make sure you have your base tone selected before you start working on this. Don't like click over here and then do this. Make sure you have your base tone selected. So I have my base tone selected, and then I move it over to the left, and then I will bring it right and down. And then I will throw that down, and I will do a little test. I'll put a test on there and I'll see, is this blending nicely? Do I like the colors? Is it too saturated? Is it not saturated enough? Is it too dark? And then I will adjust as needed. So this one I think is a little bit too desaturated and too dark. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm gonna budget, but I'm gonna budget less this time to the left, and then I'm gonna bring it down and to the right again, but I'm gonna take more effort to bring it over to the saturated side because I want it to be really bright and saturated. There, so that is a little bit more softer. It's a little bit more subtle, still pretty orangey, but I think it's a lot better for our mid-tone. So I like that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same exact thing once again, but this time I'm going to make sure I have my mid-tone selected. I'm going to bring it over to the left, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it right and down, nudge it a little bit more, and then I'll do that. And I can see already just by looking at it that I think those are pretty solid for our shadows. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start placing them. So I don't really have a rhyme or reason to why I place the shadows the way that I do. Okay, this is why I haven't said it yet, but this is why normally when I say in tutorials, I am by no means an expert, and there is no right or wrong way to render. Take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I don't care about lighting when I am rendering. I put my shadows down in the same place every single time unless I'm working with dynamic lighting. So if you are looking for a dynamic lighting tutorial, this is not it. This is how and where I place my shadows every single time I'm doing an illustration. But to be honest with you, it is probably wrong. So if you're looking for like realism or like a super expert opinion, this is not it. I just like to have fun, and this is what I do. So I am going to place my shadows down, and then I will show you guys that once that's done. Okay, so we are back with shadows in place. So let me kind of explain roughly where I've placed them. So I always put a little bit of a shadow in between the eyebrows, around the edges of the head, on the sides of the face, but I always leave a little bit of a gap on the side for like some, I guess you could call it rim lighting. I don't really know what it's necessarily called. I do this because I saw Alicia and I do it in a video, and I was like, that's gorgeous, that is so pretty, and now I do it all the time. I stole it from her. I've done it ever since then. And then this is something that I have always done, and it is absolutely a result of my Tumblr art era, is just little shadow around the nose and then right underneath. And you can see that I actually have not touched my third shadow here yet at all. I have only placed down my midtones, and that is because I use this third shadow color as like an accent, if that makes sense. So I will blend all of this out, and then if I feel like there are areas that need deeper shadow, I will place them there. Some places that those normally end up are around the eyelids, underneath the nose, the corners of the mouth, and then like little places in the ears and things like that. If I feel like I just want some extra pizzazz somewhere, if I feel like I haven't captured enough depth in a certain area, sometimes around underneath little like flecks of stray hairs and things like that as well, little flyaways, and all of that are where that usually end up, but primarily I'm focusing on that mid-tone. Another thing I noticed as I was rendering, so I have a little gap here, you guys can see it's a little farther away, it's hard to tell. If this happens, if you're using a textured brush like me, if you don't want to risk like going through all of the effort of like un-alpha locking it and finding where your gap is or whatever, you can just do this and it will slowly fill it in. And I do this all of the time. I'm so lazy, and then if I notice it's taking too many, sometimes I merge them all and I do it again, and then it fills it in. It is not there anymore, and you don't have to worry about it, especially more so once you've already gone into like actually rendering and blending is where that's going to be a problem. When you're laying your flats down, it's pretty easy to just turn off your alpha lock and fill it in. But if you're like 99% through rendering and you zoom in on the hair and you're like, oh my god, what have I done? There's this gap here and it's gonna look terrible if I try to just fill it in and reblend it. I'm so upset. Just copy paste the layer and it will fill it in. It will bleed and it will fill that through. So anyway, these are my shadows. Again, there's no really rhyme or reason why I do this. I don't think about lighting too much. The only times I really do think about lighting are when it comes to stuff like where is the hair interacting with the face. So this, the eyelid is closed, so obviously I know that like if you've studied a face before, if you look at eyes when they're closed, this is generally how the eyelid looks when it's like cast in shadow like that. And then here with the ears, it's like I know that like the inside of your ear tends to be darker, whereas like this little part, I don't even know what it's called, the sticky outy part isn't usually in shadow. That's normally lit up, and then this part where it's touching the ears, things like that. I just kind of try to think like where certain parts of the body are interacting. Another thing that really helped me when I was first learning where to place my shadows and my highlights, if you are somebody who is interested in makeup in any way, shape, or form, looking up reasons and places that are reasons and strategies, I guess, as to where people place contour and highlight, stuff like that, really helps to determine where do I put my shadows and where do I put my highlights. Very, very easy. I mean, they literally have like charts where they show you like put it here, makes it really easy. Study those if you are confused and aren't sure where to put them. But again, as a general guide, between the eyebrows, side of the face, little nosy, very, very cute. I really like it. It usually ends up making everything look really glossy and pretty by the end of it. So now the next part of our rendering, this is where things get really fun for me and where it tends to be very easy. So what I do is, and this took me years to figure out, I was never a smudge tool user because I started out, fun fact, in my digital art career via Paint Tool Sai, which I loved and I adored so much. But the thing about Paint Tool Sai is brushes did the blending for you if you had the right sorts of brushes downloaded, whereas Procreate, no, it doesn't do that. I'm sure there are brushes that do that or do what I'm wanting to, but I don't tend to like them. What I like to do nowadays, now that I've kind of come into my own and figured out how I like to render in Procreate, is I like to go to the smudge tool and I will take any sort of textured brush. You don't want a flat brush, you don't want like a textured like this, like crazy textured brush. You want kind of like a soft edge, nothing harsh. You don't want to use a monoline, definitely don't. Here, I'll show you an example why you don't want to use monoline. See how it pushes that? Super weird. And then it leaves like this little like, I don't even know what to call that, like an echo, I guess. That's ugly. We don't want that. So what we want to do is we want to use something soft. So you could use the soft airbrush because this comes directly in Procreate. I literally stole it from this soft brush. See how it says under my brushes it says soft brush 1 because I literally duplicated it and then dragged it into my frequently used folder. So you can use the airbrush. I think that is what I explained that I used in my previous tutorial, but nowadays I end up using this thick pencil. It's actually called the quintessential thick pencil. Oh my gosh, the quintessential thick pencil brush. It's from Fossil Forager on Gumroad. I am obsessed with it. I use it for everything. I use it for my flats. I use it for my lines. I use it for my renders. I use it for my blending. I use it for my everything. I have done several videos on it. I've done several TikToks on it. It is legitimately, if you like some texture, the only brush that you need for Procreate. The only one. I use it for my eraser. I use it for everything. So, granted, I use it for everything. I have it set onto my smudge tool right now. The only thing that I don't like is I like to use it on usually a big canvas. This isn't. This is 4x6 because it is a print. But on like my commissions and stuff that are usually like 2-ish thousand by 3-ish thousand, it gets pretty small and hard to blend sometimes, but I still make it work. I still make it work. So again, you can use this for literally everything. So now go to the smudge tool. Have your brush set to whatever it is that you like, and then the easiest thing, all you have to do, just start going in circles. Just start going in circles. And I recommend using a larger brush for this because the smaller you go, the harder it gets to kind of get those nice blends. Like you can see, it's not too bad, but I'm having to do a lot more work when I literally could just do this. And bam. It's so smooth and it's so nice and it's practically effortless. Like it's airbrushed in a way that like it's just really pretty. I really like it. It looks really soft and really smooth. Another thing I also want to mention, since I did say it looks really soft, is you also want to have areas of hard shadow as well, and that is again where this second, would it be the second? The second shadow is the accent shadow that I explained to you guys. You want to have areas of harsh and soft shadow because like look at my hands, for example. So you can see right kind of like here by my knuckle, and think, let me see. What can you guys see on your screen? So you can see here by my knuckle, it's really soft, but then over here by the sides of my hand, it's kind of like a sharper, more solid shadow. Well, you can't really see it on camera. Here, what's a better example? Maybe you guys can see there the place where my Apple Pencil is against my hand. It's a harsher shadow. It's really solid, and it's not so fuzzy, but then you look over, you know, towards over here where like just natural light is touching my hand, and it's really like kind of fuzzy and a very soft edge. So you want to have kind of a mix of both, because that's how it's going to be in real life. And that is another thing to keep in mind is like a general, again, if you're wanting dynamic lighting and you're wanting to be, you know, really specific with your choices, look at references. Don't just do whatever it is that I'm telling you right now and just randomly put areas of harsh and soft shadows because it will not make sense. I do the same harsh and soft shadows in every illustration, but again, if you're looking for a certain thing, then these tips will not work for you. If you are like wanting to create like a scene or something, and you have it, you know, with really like sharp lighting and it's like directly on the character, your shadows are going to be different than what I'm doing here. So try to jump on Pinterest, jump on Google Images, whatever is your image reference source of choice, if that makes sense, and just look around, be like, so for example, if I want like harsh blue lighting, then search harsh blue lighting, harsh blue top-down lighting, harsh blue underlighting, you know, something like that, and really study that image. Don't just do whatever I'm telling you, because you're not gonna get the result you want by just listening plainly to everything that I tell you. This is just a general for if you're just chilling, wanting to paint cute monster girls like I do. So yeah, you can see already that we're getting a lot of depth, a lot of dimension. There's areas where it's still highlighted pretty lightly. There's areas where we're getting some shadow, but it's all sort of kind of starting to muddy together a little bit. We still have some areas where we've got definition, but we need more. So things you can do to get that definition back are, you can go in with your, what would you call this? your base tone again and kind of define some of the edges a little bit. I really like the lighting around the jaw to be kind of sharp. It kind of depends. Sometimes I'll make it really blendy and sometimes I'll make it really, really sharp. It really kind of just depends on the mood I'm in when I'm rendering, like if I really like how the line currently looks. So like for example, over here it's pretty sharp, so I went over here to match. Then I'm gonna make it sharp. But if I blend it over here and it's really soft and I like how that looks, then sometimes I might make it soft. Just the only thing that I keep in mind is that I have this harsh sort of rim around the jawline. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I was so in love with it when I saw Lacey and I do it, but I am obsessed with it. So yeah, I'll go in certain areas where I feel like I need to get some of my light back. Is her nose crooked? Hold on. Her nose is crooked. Ignore that. Ignore that. She's cute. Whatever. So I'll go back in and I'll kind of define those light areas a little bit. And then when I think I have all of the areas that I want to be light in place, I will go in with this deep shadow again. And then that's where I'm going to go do the harsh line. So I will do that around the eyelids. And usually I need to bring this down a little bit. It's okay to leave a little bit of a textured edge, again, if you're like wanting some texture, but still want to do harsh lines. It's fine to have a little bit of this going on, but I still try to keep it relatively sharp. So I will do that by bringing my brush size down a little bit. So I'm still getting that texture, but it's like still like a harsh shadow, if that makes sense. I am going to ramble a lot in this video because I actually have not filmed this way in a long time. I have purely been filming the illustration first and then doing the voiceover later, so it has been quite some time since I have filmed and drawn at the same time. So I hope you guys like it. Do you guys miss this format? I don't know. So we're getting into, again, those areas that I mentioned earlier, places where the hair is interacting. Can you see that? Places where the hair is interacting with the head, the eyelids, things like that. I'll come in here and I usually keep it kind of like, I will do like an intentional texture over here. I really like to keep that really soft because if you look at shadows in ears, they are really like fuzzy. There's not too much like sharpness going on, if that makes sense. It's kind of just like a fuzzy shadow on the inside because there's so much going on in your freaking ears. It's insane. I simplify them so much, or at least I feel like I do, compared to looking at an actual ear. It literally gives me like a headache. I can't do that. And then we will go on to the underside of the nose. So I don't actually do the whole underside. I used to until one day, and I don't know why I did this. This wasn't anything I picked up off of anybody. I just felt like I needed more dimension in the nose one day, and I started doing what I normally do, which is doing this and then coming down and filling the whole thing in. But I just did it on the upper part, and I was like, hold on, that's cute. I really like how that looks. So I will usually go in and I will take that. And I'm really picky about the way that it looks, because if it's too flat, then I don't get the dimension that I want, or if it doesn't follow the bulb of the nose right, then I get really like antsy and weird about it. So I'll redo that a couple of times until I'm happy with the placement of it. And then I will come in and I will blend it out because I think it looks really, really cute. And then sometimes I might come back in and define it a little bit more. And I'll be really careful with putting that back in because I don't want it to be like super, super sharp and super, super solid. But I also want it to be, you know, I want it to have a little bit of a definition. I want it to look a little bit like that. And sometimes too, I'll come down and I'll bring it around the nose shadow, but I don't always do that. Oh my god, it's really crooked. I can't believe I didn't notice that till I was filming. She's still cute. We'll let it slide. And then I try to keep a little bit of the mid-tone still on the bulb. You don't want the highlight of the nose to be touching the shadow that's right here. So sometimes I'll go back in and I'll redefine that, blend it back out if I need to. That was too much. There. Just kind of mess around until I'm happy. I also will redefine the corners of the eye because I like to keep those bright and highlighted, because that's what you normally see in like makeup tutorials and things like that. A lot of the time people put like a sparkle or a highlight in the inner corner, so I like to keep them highlighted in my illustrations. Then the next thing that we do is blushing, which is my favorite part. It is so fun for me and it is so very, very simple. So I will go in I will create a new layer, and then I will set it to a clipping mask. That way it doesn't go outside of anything that I have placed down right here, so I don't have to worry about going back in and erasing around everything. It just clips to whatever I currently have on the page. And then I will set my layer to multiply, not darken, multiply. One thing I really hate about Procreate is if you are not so specific when selecting this, like, okay, let me go back to normal. If I like go in and select multiply, sometimes it won't do it and it will go back to normal, and I'll like click off the layer and then I'll have to do it again. Such a pet peeve. I don't know why it does it. It is not even consistent in when it decides to do that and when it will actually select multiply. Biggest pet peeve of mine. Anyway, so I will go in, I will select it, and then I'll kind of pick just whatever color. Again, this is where you want to think, do I want my illustration to have lots of warmth? Do I want it to be really cool toned? If you want it, let's say you have like a natural toned character, so you have like a, let's say like an olivey, here, let's use this little clown girl as an example. So she has kind of a medium skin tone. She's more olivey in the actual illustration, but when she printed, she turned out really pink. But anyway, so she has like a deeper, like mid-tone of skin, and the illustration has a lot of cool tones. I've got a lot of purple, so I wanted her blush to be kind of on the cooler pinky purple side. But if I were doing the other one, for example, where she's very pink, but she's very warm toned pink, I would want it to be more towards like the reddish sort of pinkish area, but not quite like red and orange, because I just, pet peeve of mine, I'm not a fan of orange blush. I don't like it. However, since she's yellow, she probably is gonna end up getting some pinky orange blush today, but again, just for natural tone characters, I don't usually like it. But again, like I said, try to keep in mind, do you want your character to be warm toned, cool toned, and then select your blush color accordingly, unless you're doing like a colorful blush, like if you're doing like clown makeup or something, and your character has like straight up blue blush, it doesn't matter, just go select your blue, pick a blue that you think looks pretty, and then pop on your airbrush. I already did it subconsciously, and then I will just put it on the nose, on the cheeks, the tips of the ears, and the tips of the fingers too, but we haven't rendered the fingers in this video because I'm focusing more so on the face. Very lightly on the forehead. It doesn't matter so much for this character because her forehead's covered up by her bangs, but if the forehead is exposed, then I will put it very lightly on the forehead and a little bit on the nose. And sometimes at this point as well, I'll go in and do the lips, but I'm gonna do those off camera later because I don't know what color I want to do for her lipstick yet. Mostly just focusing on the skin. So there we go. Actually, no, I have to, because I have to show you guys how I render lips to show you guys how I render skin, don't I? Okay. I'm gonna go off camera and I'm gonna experiment a little bit and I'm gonna find out what I want our lips to look like. Okay, I went ahead and got on a new layer and I found a color that I'm kind of vibing, but sometimes the way I render using multiply layers like this, I can run into issues like this where the shadow from the nose kind of gets in the way of the blending for that. So what I usually do is I will either create a new layer and I'll, select the color, remove that, and then just paint over top, or I'll go back in and I will erase that layer or whatever. But anyway, since we're still focusing on kind of blushing and everything, I'm gonna go ahead and worry about that. So now that that blush is settled in, let me delete that layer. Now that that blush is settled in, I will sometimes go back in and oh, whoops, what layer is hidden? Oh yeah. I'll go back in and I'll just blend out certain areas where I was like, okay, I was too harsh with the airbrush there, or that didn't go far enough in over here. A lot of the time I'll end up going too harsh on the chin or the forehead, so I'll have to blend those areas out. But I'm actually pretty happy with how the color is laid out. So all that I have to do after that is merge down. And now is where I focus on little embellishment details. So that's going to be the lips, that's going to be the highlights. The highlights are my favorite part. So we're going to start off with the lips because this is going to be relatively quick and easy. So I will take my Thin Render Solid brush. This one is also from Gumroad, but it was from a Jing Sketch brush pack that was, I think, $14.99. I don't know how much it is now because I bought it like 4 years ago. It's the only brush from the pack that I use because I just think it works really well for placing, base colors and things like that, and hair as well. I think it makes really nice, like, feathery strokes. So that's what I primarily use it for, but I am going in and using it for this because I like the, here, what size did I do? I like the textured sort of blendy edge that you get at the end of it. However, I am going to go back in again with my airbrush and blend it out. I was on a multiply layer for this. I like to use multiply for finding things like lips and you know, blushing and things like that. That way I don't have to worry about my tones not matching if I'm just picking like direct, like with my eyeballs, because sometimes, you know, I'll think that a color will look good on, you know, a certain skin tone. Like, so for example, if I wanted to do I knew I wanted to do orange, then I could go in and do like an orange like that and be like, ew, that is so gross. It does not suit her skin tone at all. It doesn't suit the colors or anything. Bam, multiply. That still looks bad, but usually if I'm not using colors that are so, well, yeah, if you blend it out, it looks kind of pretty because it's, you know, taking into account the things that are around it and trying to match it to those tones. So that will make it a lot easier than just going in and picking willy-nilly. Maybe it's a crutch, I don't know, but multiply is my best friend. So I will go in and I will select this color, and then this is a little bit different because she does have an open mouth, so I don't do everything exactly the same as I'm doing right now, but I am going to try to do it the same. So I'm following along where I think her bottom lip should be. I never go completely to the corners when I'm placing the color down, because if I do, then I can't get this subtle blend at the end, which is my favorite part. I like everything to look really soft, almost kind of like glossy, if that makes sense. I don't really like to do like a matte lip. Almost always all of my characters have lip gloss on. So I am just erasing very subtly certain areas where I think it is not following the shape that I want, because again, her mouth is open and I don't usually draw this, so trying to figure out where her lips would be. I also normally have lips lined in the line art, but because of her expression, I wanted to leave them open so that I could kind of leave room for me to figure out how I wanted to render that. So yeah, I'm just kind of going in, using the eraser, trying to be really soft, to shape the lips how I want them. I'll have to go back in every once in a while with my pen, just kind of shaping everything and then blending out the edges. And then once I like kind of the shape of everything, I'll go in and I will add dimension, and sometimes that means going in with a little bit of a darker color, and sometimes that means going straight in with the highlight. In this case, I think I want a little bit more depth to her lips, so I'm adding in some darker, like kind of a vermilion tone. Again, trying to just following where I put shadows and stuff like that. Also, I realized when I was off camera that this was supposed to be a Patreon exclusive video, but I don't like to put tutorials behind a paywall, so I'm gonna have to figure out what video I'm gonna use for Patreon for this month, because patrons get an extra video every single month, and I just started doing that. Was it last month or the month before? And I was like, oh my gosh, why don't I just do one Patreon, you know, thing for Patreon, obviously, and then the other Patreon speed paint will be for YouTube. And then I got so excited to render this on camera that I forgot that I already did the clown sticker for this month's YouTube video. So I'm gonna have to figure out what to do for that. So I hope you guys like this cheeky little video, because it was indeed supposed to be a Patreon exclusive, but I'm too far in. I had to do it. So anyway, I've got the lips down kind of in the shape that I want them to be, and now it's time to merge them down and start doing highlights. I'm actually gonna blend this a little bit more because the shape of the tongue is kind of weird. Oh, I shouldn't have merged that. Hold on. Back it up a little. Back it up. One more. What? How far back did I? Okay, there. Underneath the tongue a little bit, because that makes more sense. There. Oh, now I gotta backtrack a lot. I hope you guys like me thinking out loud. Okay. Does that look more natural? Possibly. I'm gonna figure this out off camera so you guys don't watch me talking to myself for 12 minutes. Okay, I think I finally got that in a position that I like. That's the fun part of making art, is that most of it is kind of just screwing around until you get to a point where something clicks and everything looks right. But now it is officially time to get down and do highlights. So this is my favorite part. Again, it's going to be similar to shading. I'm just going to show you guys the key points as to where I place them and how I choose the color for them. So I'm going right here and I'm selecting again my base tone. And usually when you want to highlight yellow, you want to go like kind of towards green. But sometimes when I'm using like this kind of like candy soft, like almost like pinkish yellow, does that make any sense? It's like a very like soft yellow. It's away from primary, but it's not quite orange. I don't like to go over to the green as much because you can see like, yeah, that kind of looks nice, but it also shifts the tone of that color. So I don't like to do that. I kind of will just do a naughty and I'll sneak over and I'll go towards white, which I usually say don't do because you don't get as much depth. So actually I am going to sneak over teeny tiny bit, but I'm going to be really careful about how closely I approach green when I'm picking this. When you're picking other colors and stuff, it won't matter as much. Seriously, go over to the right, always to the right when you're picking a highlight, and then, you know, kind of scoot it left and down. You want to go towards the light, but not like white, you know, so like say, let's bubble around. Let's say this is the base tone. If I want to pick a highlight, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go bam, bam, up right here. And that is a really bad color because those were really ugly colors, but you kind of get the idea. You're going to go up and to the left as opposed to down and to the left. So do you do the left? No, down, so it's down and to the right for shadow, up and to the left for highlight. I hope that makes sense. I get my directions messed up, which is why I try to do this on camera as much as possible, so that it actually makes sense, because when I'm verbally giving instruction, it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I will select that. I will find my highlight. I'm gonna be very, very careful. I'm going to go over and I'm going to select my color, and then I'm going to put the highlight in these key places. So when I have, especially like inhuman characters like this that have like these big pointy like elf alien ears, I will always highlight little parts like the tips of the ears. I will always, 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 no matter what, highlight the tip of the nose. And I kind of like to do like this speckling motion. I picked that up from Sarah Tepes a couple of years ago because I used to just do like a solid like really tiny dot on the tip of the nose, and while this is absolutely cute, doing the speckles like this kind of gives it the illusion of like a skin, like there's light dappling, and your skin is like skin. It's textured, it's not plasticky. So yeah, I just kind of bop around, put some little dots there, and then again I will add some highlight to the inner corners of the eyes. I also like to throw it on the eyelids as well because I think it's really pretty. I like to do like kind of like that glossy eye look. I just think it's very nice. Usually I have longer eyebrows, but when I do, I'll kind of like bring it down over here. She does not, however, so I'm just gonna kind of like very lightly do it right here. I'm not gonna go too overboard with that, but when I do have characters like here, let me go off to the side here, give you guys a quick little demo. So let's say this is my character. She's green for some reason with purple eyebrows because she's She-Hulk, I guess. So let's say I have my highlight here. I will bring it up and to the left. And I will also scooch this over to the blue. I kind of, oh, that's too big. I will bring it up underneath like the tail and then kind of speckle it down. I kind of make this like, I don't even know how to describe this, like hatching, I guess. So I'll do kind of this kind of motion. Sometimes it'll go under the whole eyebrow. It just kind of depends on what I'm working on, trying to take in mind the vibe of the piece, the mood, whatever it is. And I lost my highlight color, so I have to zoom in and find it. This is the only annoying thing about doing the speckly thing and having a textured brush, is that sometimes I am silly and forget to put my highlight swatch down, and then I have to zoom in and try to find it desperately, and I don't sometimes, and that's scary. So anyway, I will do underneath the eyebrows, and then I'll come back in on the side of the face again and throw some more highlight in there because I think it's pretty. I'll do a little bit on the forehead, on the edges of, or on the edge, on the tip of the chin here, corners of the mouth. It might be redundant because I put shadows there as well, but I did it once just for funsies, and now I think it's really pretty. And then this I actually picked up from Kelsey Beckett. I watched her do I think it was like a watercolor piece that she then went in and took colored pencil and went down the side of the face like this and added a highlight in that way, and I thought it was the most gorgeous thing in the entire world, and I've been doing it ever since. I think it really adds to the whole, like, everything is shiny, everything is glossy, everything is pretty. So I'll kind of do that, and then I might do that on random areas of the face where I think like light would be hitting it, just if I think that it needs it. I didn't really like that, so I'm erasing it. But yeah, generally right here, and then I will also do the bridge of the nose. Is that the bridge? Yeah, the bridge of the nose, and these sides of the nose as well, and that is pretty much it. I don't really do anything else as far as rendering the skin goes. The most I will do is every once in a while if I feel like, oh, maybe I didn't capture enough the depth. Again, here is I'll go back in and I'll just start adding things back in. I'll blend away as needed, just kind of keep coming around, checking over everything once in a while, especially once you've done things like added in the blush and things like that. You'll kind of realize areas where you're maybe lacking, and especially if you've added the blush too, since it was a multiply layer, you don't want to like go back in and select your mid-tone, so kind of just use that stair-step method again. Select your area of blush, and then to get shadow, scoot it over and down, and then you can add depth in that way, once again without taking away the actual like color that the blush put down, because if you just put the mid-tone back over, it's not gonna look good. It's not gonna look right. I also realized I forgot to tell you the edges of the face. I do come back in and add that darker color along the edge too. It's kind of hard for me to do now because I went and added the blush in like a silly. I only recently started doing that, so I tend to forget. But yeah, I'll kind of come back in and sharpen that up and usually blend it out. But yeah, other than that, this is pretty much what I do when I render skin. So now I'm gonna go in and show you guys really easy portraits, how to pick more natural skin tones, because I know a lot of people struggle with like skin tones that are too ashy or desaturated, or just, you know, have a hard time picking a natural skin tone. So I'm going to try my best to explain how to do that. But when it comes to shadowing and highlighting those areas, or those tones, those base tones, it's the exact same thing as what I did here. Again, that's why I like to do it with a more unnatural skin tone, so you guys can kind of see the process for picking it. And then once you have your base tone selected, everything should be easy to go from there. So I'm gonna find a good base for that, and then I will come back to you guys. Okay, so here is our victim. This was an abandoned sketch that was for a Lord Grease Draw the Singer style from like July or something, I think, that I never had time to do. So unfortunately, it went to the whip folder to die, but here she is in all of her glory. Right away, I am starting with a red line art. When it comes to picking natural skin tones, I like to keep it anywhere between red and purple, because red is more on the warm side, purple is more on the cool side, and then there's still enough in between that you can get a nice neutral tone as well. But I really like to stick around that reddish purple area because our blood is red. If you are a human person, your blood is red. So whether you have, you know, kind of green undertones, yellow undertones, anything like that, you have red blood running in your veins. So that's gonna come through in your skin. So when it comes to like accents and things like that, there's gonna be, you know, subtle touches of red, like blooming in your cheeks and things like that. So I just kind of like to keep it red because that makes things simple. The only time I will steer away from this is if I am sold on a certain color palette. So I know if I'm going to have a lot of greens or a lot of blues or something, then I might pick my line art color to suit that. But again, if I'm just kind of going for fun, natural sort of skin tone, I'm gonna start with red lines for my base. Okay, so then the next thing that I hear, and again, remember, set it to multiply. Doesn't matter if you're using natural, unnatural, vibrant, colorful, whatever. always set your liner to multiply if you do line art the way that I do. So once you have it set to there, the problem that I hear all the time, especially when it comes to people picking deeper skin tones, is they are worried about their skin tones being ashy or desaturated or anything like that. And the easiest way to get around that is to have your color wheel set up in a square like this. So you can see over here is your deepest area, or your brightest area, I guess, of saturation. Over here you have the white for your highlight, and then in oh my god in both of these corners over here you have your straight up just pitch black. So what you want to do is avoid areas like this where you can see that it's visibly gray, generally like this side of the color wheel. So you want to try to pick around the middle area right here where everything is going to be pretty vibrant, but you can still get a very good scale between, like, you know, your lights, your midtones, and your deeper shades. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are doing a deeper skin character and you want them to be cool toned, there is a difference between ashy, like this, where it's pretty dang gray, and cool toned. So I'm gonna put more red in there, deepen it up. There is a huge difference between ashy and cool tone. Ashy and cool tone. Cool tone does not mean gray. It does not mean purple. It means cool. So you still can kind of like get into this purple territory even and have a really nicely done cool toned deep skinned character without it being gray. Stay away, just stay away from this whole patch. Unless you're doing like a really pale character, then you can kind of get away with it, because you can see like that's not so bad. You still have some peach in there. If you're doing a lighter skinned character, then you can kind of get away with being over here, but also at the same time you kind of don't want to, because then that really limits you as far as your highlights, what kind of colors you can get, because like for example, if I start up here, this was the issue that I was having with the candy corn girl, is that I had started so high up on the color wheel that when it came to picking her highlight tones, it's hard to get a rich bright highlight. So you kind of do almost want to stay in sort of, go back to peach territory over here, in this sort of area, so that when it comes to, or even, yeah, come down here, this is still clearly a pale character, and then you can get in with the highlights and really emphasize that, and you'll have a lot more, you know, depth and color and things like that. I know this was like a really brief sort of explanation for that, but I hope that makes sense. That's a reverse highlight coming down here. I hope that makes sense. Again, when it comes to choosing deeper skin characters, just don't even think about going over here. Don't do it. You can see the reason that I recommend the square is because, again, you can see very plainly where all of your areas of saturation are, and you can see this gray happening right here. If you see gray, stay away. It's very simple. I'm just kind of trying to stay towards like the reds and the purples, and even then that's still too close to gray for me. So I'll come in and see, very pretty, like deep base tone. I think that's cute. It's definitely not ashy. You have a lot of room to kind of play with undertones and things like that, and not worry about your character looking ashy, looking washed out, looking zombie-like. And again, it's not just for deeper tone characters. If I were to come over here and say like, okay, I want to have a tan character, that is ugly. That looks bad, right? If I go just even the tiniest bit over here, look how much better that is. How much better. If I go over here, ew, gray, that's ashy, right? That's bad, that looks bad. Here, that is not a cool toned tan. If I want a cool toned tan, I'm gonna go more towards the purple, go more over here, bam, there's a good tan. There's a good tan. There's a good tan. This is a bad tan. This is not good. So yeah, keep it in, you know, your color square, stay away from the grays, and you should have an easy time choosing skin tones. Really, anywhere that you land, you will probably end up with a good skin tone, and then if you follow the shadow steps that I taught you. So let me select that, go to the left, right and down, bam. You have a good shadow. But also, another reason why I like to do red line art is this. There you go. There's a shadow. You didn't even have to do this step because it's right there, and it makes it super, super easy to pick a shadow that suits all of the tones of your illustration. So yeah, I know that was very brief. I say it was brief. It was 7 minutes long. This video is probably an hour freaking long, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, one more thing, coming back to this girl again, because she is the star of the show, but also because, why didn't you guys tell me that I forgot to highlight the lips? I forgot to show you. Why didn't you tell me? Anyways, it's pretty similar to the highlights around the rest of the face. However, something that I do uniquely to when I'm rendering glossy lips is I will actually go and I will select my highlight, or like go towards the area of highlight, again, follow the same steps, and I will choose a really, really vibrant highlight. So here we go. Let's see how this looks. So I'll choose a really, really vibrant tone. I'm actually gonna go more towards like the orangey red, and I will go in with that. And it's okay if it looks more like a mid-tone at first. It's supposed to be very, very subtle, and then I'll actually go in again and I will choose a lighter highlight. But I just like to have like the kind of like overly saturated bit around the edge, because for some reason I think that looks really pretty. It's more obvious when it comes to doing the lower lip. On the upper lip, I usually don't even really do too much lighting, but because her lips are so big and because there's a lot of area for gloss, I will kind of go in and throw in, you know, just little areas here and there of highlight. This is obviously really dramatic because I'm just trying to explain some areas and some ways that I might do things. I actually think I'm gonna highlight it down here. But anyway, that is generally how I highlight them, just because I think that adding that extra bit of saturation adds some visual interest there where there's not usually much of. I don't really do that for areas on the face because I feel like that could sometimes be distracting, but I will occasionally if I want to add you know, like more diverse lighting, or if I'm trying to do like an iridescent sort of thing, but usually I reserve that just for the lips. I don't know why, I only started doing it recently, but I really like how that looks. Speaking of liking how things look, I hope you guys like how this looks and how the finished version of this ended up turning out. If you like it, again, feel free to subscribe to the Patreon by October 31st, by Halloween, to get her in the mail. If you subscribe after that, you're not getting her. If you subscribe November 1st, sorry, she's not coming to your house. She's not trick-or-treating with you. It has to be by October 31st to receive her in the mail. If you just want to subscribe for October, no shame in that. No shame in that at all. Come and get her while you can, because who knows when I'm getting that secret shop up, if I ever do. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. A huge shout out to my patrons, Elise Thompson, Duran, Mandy, Schleeps, Created by Twins, Inky Moo Art, Sidewalker Art, Fishner Flesh, Akita Kai, Watery Turd, and Daru. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting me and caring about my art so much that you give me money to make it every single month. You guys are amazing. I could not do this without you. Again, if you want to go join the Patreon, it will be linked down in the description. It's on the screen here as well. Also, I'm sorry that I forgot that this was supposed to be a Patreon exclusive video. Let me know below what you guys want to see for the exclusive video this month, if it's not already up, because I figured something out. I don't know yet because I'm filming this right now. Anyways, enough rambling. I'm sure this video is long enough. I love you guys so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.